everyone, and welcome to Breakouts. My name is Emily McCormick, and I'll be your host this evening. Breakouts is Yahoo Finance's monthly interview series where we speak with some of the rising stars in the entrepreneur space making a splash in their industries. Tonight, we'll be talking with one of the up-and-comers in the beverage space, specifically with CBD, that non-psychoactive, trendy chemical that's actually derived from cannabis. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Recess founder and CEO, Ben Witte. Hi, Ben. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And a great time to actually have you since Recess just turned 1 year old about a week ago now.
That's right, yep.
So take us back a little bit. So how did you actually get the idea for this sparkling water brand? Because your background actually isn't in the consumer packaged goods space.
Yeah, that's right. So I kind of grew up in Southern California. I was really into art and design and filmmaking in particular. I thought that's what I wanted to study in college, but I ended up studying undergraduate business. And I spent the first 7 years of my career in Silicon Valley working in early stage tech startups. I graduated in 2010, so that was right when kind of the Silicon Valley startup scene was starting to kind of emerge and boom. And so my first job at a college was a 3-person startup that was building an influencer marketing platform in social media. So it's one of these things that was like the right idea at the wrong time. Like we launched on MySpace to give you a sense of where the world was. But it was very impactful because in the various early days of Facebook, and that was before Instagram, I got to think about how do you build a brand in a social media driven world. And that's very much kind of influenced how I thought about creating Recess. From there, I joined another ad tech startup, also pretty early. I was there from 15 people. When I left, there were 600 people. So it was a different type of experience. I learned, how to scale a business and what mistakes not to make when you're growing very quickly. But I always knew I wanted to start my own company, and I always knew my kind of passions and strengths were more around kind of consumer experiences and design, and that I wasn't the best person on the planet to build software for businesses. And so I kind of just literally quit my job and went out on my own. And I spent a year exploring a different idea before Recess. It was a hotel concept, actually, like Soho House meets a high-end hostel targeted at the WeWork crowd.
But we all know how that ended up.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Far.
And so I ultimately concluded it just wasn't the right first idea to pursue. Too capital intensive, too long of a time horizon to build a building. And so I dropped that. And then I was deciding, should I go back and get a regular job or should I keep going? And I just ultimately concluded that I'm kind of unemployable. And so decided to keep going. And long story short, about 2 years ago, I saw CBD kind of bubble up on the periphery. And I've always been a naturally kind of wired, stressed out, anxious person. And when I started using CBD oil regularly, I felt much more balanced and even keeled. And as a result, I felt more productive, more creative, and less stressed out and anxious. And I just had a number of insights, from that experience. The first is that I'm not the only one that feels this way. Stress and anxiety, I think, are one of the biggest issues kind of our generation. And it's only the past couple of years it's I think been something that we acknowledge and increasingly seek out solutions for. The second insight was that CBD, the compound was effective for me at helping me feel better, but the user experience of taking CBD oil is not a great one. I just don't think it's going to be very mainstream for people to walk around with a tincture and put something that tastes like grass under their tongue a couple times a day. But the way to think about CBD as a compound, no more interesting than kind of caffeine or whey protein. Just a commoditized functional ingredient that's going to be added to many things, and the value would be kind of creating the right formulation, so a dissolvable tablet or a sparkling water or an iced tea, and most importantly, building the brand on top of it. And I think the closest analogy to CBD is caffeine. I really believe it's kind of the caffeine of the 21st century, and what are the biggest caffeine companies? It's Starbucks, it's Red Bull, et cetera, and they don't market caffeine, they market the feeling that the compound enables, which kind of inspired our approach. And so then the third insight was around, I literally didn't know a single person that worked in CPG or beverage. It never even crossed my mind to look at the space to start a business in. But my observation was that this is the most brand-driven category on the planet, and no one's good at marketing anymore. And so Red Bull was a great brand, Coca-Cola was a great brand, Gatorade's a great brand, and the common thing amongst them is they're all marketing a feeling. And what are the most successful beverage brands today, in my opinion, have succeeded despite not being good at marketing. And that, there's been a shift to, today I like to say, like, brands used to be built on the shelf. Today they're built on your phone, and that changes everything. And again, that has inspired kind of our strategy for sure, which I'll talk about. And then the fourth insight was around CBD and regulation. At the time, CBD was a controlled substance, and I obviously recognized that I wasn't going to, run a business indefinitely selling a controlled substance. And so there had to be some path for CBD to become a permissible ingredient. And at the time, I heard about this piece of legislation being introduced by Mitch McConnell, the kind of Senate Majority Leader from Kentucky, that called the Hemp Farming Act. And what that basically accomplishes, it basically says we want hemp to be the future crop of America. And it allows kind of all 50 states to cultivate hemp and removed CBD from the controlled substance list, shifting the regulation from the DEA to the FDA. And so when I heard about that, I'm like, wait a second, like, so if I'm able to kind of, create this product and navigate the regulatory environment to arrive on the other side, you could build the next Red Bull here. And it's actually because of the regulatory uncertainty, none of the big guys, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Nestle, were going to get into it. And so it gave us this kind of window to build this brand. And when I looked at all four of those things, I'm like, this is kind of worth doing. And I just kind of got going.
Well, and you really picked probably one of the most controversial ingredients that you could have with CBD. I mean, yes, it's now under the FDA's jurisdiction, but if we look at that, I mean, this is what the New York Department of Health actually says. They say it's unlawful to add CBD to food or drink. So how have you actually gotten around that? Because it still is a little bit opaque as to whether CBD is lawful in a food or beverage, which is what you're selling.
Yeah, so the way I think about that is, when the Hemp Farming Act passed, there was a misconception in the industry that that would be the end of the road regarding the regulatory questions. It was really the beginning of the road. And so something doesn't just go from a controlled substance to something you can put in a drink and sell at Whole Foods overnight. Like, there's going to be a process that we're going through to determine, like, what's the maximum amount of dosage you can use in a serving, what are the labeling requirements, what are the marketing claims, what are the testing you need to do. And we're going through that right now. I've become very engaged on these issues. So I'm on the board of directors of a group called the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, which is the main industry coalition working with Mitch McConnell and the FDA to kind of create these guidelines. And the FDA has actually kind of, made statements saying we recognize that this is uncertain, and we recognize that the entire industry needs clarity. And that we're effectively not going to enforce only anyone besides the worst actors, people making claims around curing cancer and things like that. And so, some of these jurisdictions like New York will make these statements. In fact, in New York, a bill passed with the House and the Senate in the spring called the Hemp Extract Act, which explicitly allows for the addition of CBD to food and beverages. And Cuomo just hasn't signed that bill.
Right.
And there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I anticipate this situation getting more clear very soon.
Have you actually ever received any kind of letters from the FDA, any other kind of state or federal officials about what you're doing, saying, hey, we have our eye on you? I mean, because I know Curaleaf, which is a cannabis brand, like they really do market as a cannabis brand, and I know you're a little bit more laid back about marketing CBD as the ingredient. They actually did get a letter and had to pull some of their products from CVS. So has anything like that happened to Recess?
No letters from the FDA, fortunately. We did have to shift our manufacturing, which was in the Hudson Valley, out of the state, and we had to lay off a bunch of people up there. And so, it's an example of the lack of kind of regulatory clarity very much kind of hampering the industry and forcing us to be very nimble. And so that's the extent of the direct communications to us. And I'm calling for regulation. Like, I want to be regulated. I think the biggest risk to Recess is kind of bad actors. And so we want very stringent regulation about, again, maximum dosage, testing requirements, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to see us kind of be even more kind of proactive in public. We're doing a lot behind the scenes right now but we'll be kind of talking about it a lot more moving forward.
Yeah, what do you mean by that, about bad actors being the biggest threat to recess? I mean, people just kind of going to the illicit market or getting bootleg CBD products?
Yeah, I think of CBD right now, it's kind of like this mania, right? It's definitely, again, when I started working on the idea 2 years ago, it was definitely not as well known as it is today or as prevalent. But I think it has similar dynamics to like the cryptocurrency mania, where there's this kind of gold rush and everyone's trying to start, the 2000th CBD oil company, or there's a new beverage launching every single day. And a lot of the people, frankly, launching these companies don't recognize, how challenging it is to create high quality products that are compliant. And so they take shortcuts. And maybe they're using synthetic CBD from China or something like that. And so when I talk about the regulation being required, I think it's to ensure that the products that are out there are very high quality.
And how do you really think about the competition? Because if we think about the sparkling water, sparkling beverage space, it's kind of live fast, die young, right? I mean, look at LaCroix, really had its peak. Now we have things like White Claw, other competitors coming into the space and really taking market share. So how do you really stay ahead of that?
Yeah, so I think the most interesting thing about recess is the number of different kind of consumption occasions there are for the product. So when you think about your like total addressable market for a beverage, which is like how big it could potentially get, it's really a function of like what are the times of day and use cases someone can drink it, and what are the places it can be sold. The most interesting thing about recess is that people drink it at every waking hour of the day. So there's a group of people that drink it right when they get up in the morning to start their day calm, maybe instead of a coffee, counterintuitively. And there's another group of people that drink it before bed. The core use case is, let's call it 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., like at your office, at lunch, as a substitute for a coffee. It works really well, at fitness locations, like before or after a workout. It works really well at bars, restaurants, and nightclubs, as a substitute for alcohol, as a mixer with alcohol. A lot of people are serving with bottle service at clubs. And so when you think about each of those use cases, they're really competing against a different product, right? And so at your office, people are drinking recess instead of a LaCroix. At lunch, at a fast casual restaurant, they're buying recess, instead of Spindrift. At a coffee shop, it's maybe complimentary a coffee or as a substitute for coffee. At night, it's as a substitute for a beer, wine, or alcohol. As a mixer, maybe as a substitute for Red Bull, right? And so it's a tough question to answer because I think there's a lot of different dimensions we're competing on. And so I kind of think more about it that way. Obviously, the CBD beverage category is kind of rapidly emerging, and there's literally a new brand feels like it's launching every single day. And so I don't spend that much time thinking about that. In that category specifically, I'd like to think that I actually don't think our biggest competition exists yet. And I think there will be a lot more kind of competition from larger players once the regulation kind of clarifies further.
Have any of the major players actually started talking to you? I mean, I'm thinking like a Coca-Cola, a Pepsi, some of these huge beverage players now who might want to, start having these conversations, get ahead of it so that when that regulation is unlocked, they're the one with these products and these brands that already have a big following.
Yes, we were talking to them.
Do you have any names specifically?
Yeah, all the obvious. I mean, there's only a couple players, right?
Right.
And so, we've had conversations with most of them.
And who are your investors right now? Because again, you're in CBD, a little bit of that gray area. So who's really willing to take that leap right now and get ahead of this industry with you?
Yeah, no, when I kind of was fundraising right before I launched, it was definitely a gray area. A lot of VCs had vice clauses, which kind of prevented them from investing in kind of substances like this. But we very deliberately have not talked about kind of our fundraising strategy in our investors. We like to have kind of, what we create kind of speak for ourselves. And in my opinion, I think too many brands focus too much on PR around fundraising. So at some point, we'll talk more about our fundraising and our different investors we have to support the company, but we're not talking about it right now.
But fundraising to date, I mean, do you have kind of ballpark how much you've raised? Just what you're looking at monetarily?
Just a couple $1 million.
Nice. When you think a little bit about branding, I mean, you've talked about this, how beverage is really this brand-driven space. So how did you think about making this brand for Recess? And I think your Instagram really kind of captures that. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very art-driven. How did you really cultivate that?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is that our first line on the website and on the can is like, we can to feeling. I really look at actually what we do at Recess is kind of like design feelings in a certain way. And so, when you drink any functional food, beverage, or supplement, I think the perceived effect is a combination of the efficacy of the functional ingredients and how they interact with us each individually. So think about caffeine, like some people can't drink coffee, others can have an espresso before bed. I think CBD is going to impact everyone, slightly differently. But in the case of CBD and like the mission of Recess is to help people kind of reduce stress and anxiety, it's almost as much like what you don't feel is what you feel, right? The opposite of feeling stressed and anxious and jittery is feeling calm and nothing, so to speak. And so in this case, I think your expectation about what taking a Recess is going to do to you is much more important than the CBD. And so when we were thinking about kind of creating the brand, we wanted the name and all of our messaging to kind of speak to like what we're offering. And so, the feeling, the way I like to describe the feeling is calm, cool, collected, not tired, not wired. This idea of feeling kind of balanced and calm and kind of able to focus with kind of a productivity bent to it. And so I really look at Recess in some ways as a productivity company. And then we really wanted to kind of focus on establishing kind of a new consumption occasion in people's lives. Like think about the consumption occasions around coffee, like how big a market that is in the morning and at 2 o'clock. Right, and I think we're kind of creating a similar new, various consumption occasion in people's lives of taking a Recess. So there was 2 big things, and then, I'd say, I think a lot of like conventional wisdom would have been to do like a brand similar to like a Fiji water, like a white can, and like very blissful. But I wanted to kind of create a Recess world that kind of transported people, and so we kind of created this kind of psychedelic vaporware world. And the colors we used were kind of inspired by sunsets. Like I grew up on the beach in California and I watched sunsets every night with my mom, and that was like taking Recess to me. And I look at kind of pastels, colors as, both calming and kind of the gradients as kind of a reference to sunsets.
Right. You talk a little bit too about, canning a feeling and this being more comparable to the caffeine industry where we don't think about caffeine, we think about the energy industry. But doesn't that really take a coordination by all the players in the space? Because right now it feels like all the CBD players are saying, hey, we're a CBD company, because just by saying that, you can get a lot more customers.
Yeah, but no one talks about them, right? So like, I think that's the difference is that, we're pitching kind of a narrative. I look at, our brand is like a social commentary on living in 2019. One of our taglines is an antidote to modern times. The idea is like the world's gone crazy and we all need a Recess. And we use humor and like the tongue-in-cheek kind of brand voice very deliberately. In some ways, it's kind of making fun of millennial culture and millennial kind of branding. And so I think all these other CBD brands are saying, CBD reduces anxiety. And we're saying Recess is an antidote to modern times that helps you feel calm, cool, collected. And we literally don't market the CBD because I just don't think it's that interesting. Like consumers don't want to hear 50 facts about hemp all week, right? They want to hear about kind of how it makes them feel and engage with content and experiences that are kind of thoughtful and clever and kind of deeply engaging. And I'd say most importantly, everything we do at Recess is designed to kind of create earned media and buzz, which kind of harkens back to like my first company out of school, which was the entire premise was about how do you kind of create earned media as a brand. And so I'd say that's kind of how we differentiate. I think right now, CBD is, you can like slap it on the label and sell some products, but over time it's going to be like every other category where kind of brands win.
You're both direct to consumer and on retail shelves. What really informed doing both of those strategies? And are you seeing more payback from one or the other?
Yeah, so a lot of people confuse this. So we launched direct to consumer only off our website out of my apartment 2 blocks away. Deliberately. We had like many distributors wanted to meet with us, many retailers wanted to meet with us, and I on purpose said no. And the reason was I wanted kind of consumers' first interaction with our brand to be our website and our Instagram, because that's kind of what conveys the mission and the purpose and conveys kind of the emotion of what taking Recess is. And the second reason is I wanted to kind of create the buzz and the leverage online in order to go offline and have kind of the distributors and the retailers kind of come to us. And that just kind of worked a lot better than we thought it would. So we did 40 times our first month's projected sales. We had 5,000 back orders after 1 month. And, and it was just me and kind of my partner at the time, Simon, as the only 2 full-time employees. And we're like, we have something here.
Wow.
And so the business plan for the past year has been to, in some ways, kind of slow down in order to speed up. We had to go build an organization and a supply chain and kind of launch our first 2 markets, which are New York and LA, as in preparation for the FDA kind of clarifying the regulation. And when that happens, that's when the game really begins. So what I like to say is, like, it feels like CBD is everywhere, but it's actually nowhere.
Right.
Because it's not in the kind of national retailers yet. So it's not in Duane Reade, it's not in Whole Foods, it's not in Target. And trust me, they all want it there. And they're not going to move until kind of the FDA kind of clarifies things further. And so we're building an organization that's ready for that moment.
If there's one retailer that you would love to see Recess on the shelves of, which one would it be right now?
I mean, we have a lot of we have Erewhon in LA, we have Bristol Farms, but I'd say Whole Foods.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
What do you think it is about that brand that really works with it?
It's just like it's where you build kind of natural food brands, and so. But we're in a lot of my favorite kind of places, all at restaurants and Surf Lodge in the Hamptons and places like that. But from a major retailer standpoint, kind of Whole Foods is where you want to be.
Yeah, I've seen you in actually quite a few of the natural food stores just around New York, so I know that's been a big part of your strategy as well. What's headcount right now? I mean, how big have you really grown from a year ago to now?
Yeah, we're about 25 full-time employees between kind of New York and LA, and then we have a manufacturing partner in the Hudson Valley as well that has, I don't know, about 10 employees now.
And where do you actually source your CBD and your emulsifier? Because I would assume, CBD as an oil, you probably need some, technology to actually get that to dissolve, I would think. Yeah.
Correct. It's a funny story. Like, when I came up with the idea, there was no concept of water-soluble CBD. And like you said, oil doesn't dissolve in water. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I got to figure out how to, make water-soluble CBD. So I literally started calling hemp farmers in Kentucky. I was like, how do I put this in a drink? And the first person I got connected to was a random guy, like in a random part of New Jersey, that was operating out of a warehouse that looked like you were walking to like a Breaking Bad facility. And I started experimenting with whatever he gave me.
How did you find them? I mean, did you just Craigslist it?
I can't remember the farmer's name, but it was like someone who was buying the CBD from that he had developed a process to kind of make it water soluble.
Right.
And over time, everyone, the whole industry was becoming more sophisticated, and everyone recognized, what a large opportunity, obviously, creating all these different applications for CBD would be. And so I ultimately ended up working with a group out of Colorado that's kind of fully vertically integrated. So they do everything from the cultivation to the processing to the emulsion technology, which allows it to be water soluble.
And as someone who is on the hemp roundtable, I know you do a lot of lobbying directly in DC, helped pass the Safe Banking Act in the House just recently. What do you see actually as the next state to legalize recreational cannabis, and when do you see full legalization coming about?
Well, I think that's the most important distinction. So hemp and marijuana are going to be 2 fundamentally completely different things. And so we've actually tried to avoid states where recreational cannabis, marijuana, was legal. So, conventional wisdom was to launch Recess in California. Like, you're a cannabis company, that's like the heart of the cannabis industry, and that's what you want to be associated with. And I very deliberately chose New York because I wanted to kind of establish the brand outside of the California marijuana echo chamber. And I also think, counterintuitively, one of the groups that is opposed to, literally one of the only groups that is opposed to the kind of the progress of hemp and CBD is marijuana, because it's a substitute. You can buy a Recess at Whole Foods, maybe you're not going to MedMen, right?
Yeah.
And so, we try and separate ourselves from that kind of legislation. There's, New York's, very far along in a bill. California's very far along in a bill. Illinois, and so every state's very active, and I anticipate kind of an updated statement from the FDA in December about kind of the path ahead.
Interesting. And what do you think that's going to actually look like?
I think it's not going to be the end of the road yet, but it's going to be, here are next steps. Here's how we're thinking about things. And there's Mitch McConnell introduced a clause into the latest kind of budget around kind of enforcement discretion, basically acknowledging that the FDA is taking a long time and directing them not to kind of enforce, not bad actors until they kind of come out with their formal set of guidelines.
And I just want to remind the live studio audience here, we will be opening the floor for questions in just about 5 minutes. So start thinking of those and lining up in the back and by the mic, and we'll go ahead and take those in just a couple minutes. When you think about the future of Recess, what does that actually look like? Are you going to stick with beverages? Do you think of other form factors? Is CBD going to be the only ingredient, or where do you see this brand going?
Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning, I look at Recess as we create products, products that you consume in your body. So right now that's just, beverage, like one line of beverages, but you could see a whole, line of beverages that are kind of obvious. And then we could do things like dissolvable tablets and powders and, various forms of additives. And so if you think about all these ways people are using CBD right now, they're adding it to their coffee, they're adding it to their smoothie, they're adding it to a cocktail. We could conceivably do any of those. So it's a question of like what makes sense for us when. And then, the brand of Recess is much bigger than, CBD or just the beverage, right? I really look at us as, I hate the term lifestyle brand, but, a lifestyle brand focused on kind of creatives. So the communities we focus on are music, fashion, art, design, internet culture. And so you're going to see us kind of go heavy into kind of content and editorial and kind of apparel and merchandise in very much kind of a collaboration-driven approach. And so I think there's a bunch of different kind of business models we're kind of combining into ours. Like it's going to be like a collab drop model similar to what Kith or Supreme does with a brand. You're going to see us go into content editorial, which is really tough business to make work right now if you're just pursuing an ad-supported format. Like the benefit of beverages again is that that frequency of use and purchase and the distribution you get lead to just brand marketing 101. Like why does Red Bull pay people to jump out of rockets and stuff? Well, they just want to create that buzz and awareness, and we're going to do that in our own way, and that's going to be content, editorial experiences, and merchandise.
But is the goal to still essentially be known as that core beverage brand? I mean, if you think of a Red Bull, they still have that core with them. So that's
that's the core. That's the core product and business model. But Red Bull had Red Bull Music, and it's like I look at Red Bull as a content marketing and experiential marketing company that monetizes through selling cans.
That's
right?
Awesome.
And so Red Bull effectively enables the entire action sports community to exist through sponsoring the events and sponsoring the athletes. And my mission is to really do the same thing with creatives and really enable kind of creatives to make amazing things that are kind of built on top of the Recess platform.
And going back to this theme of taking a recess, you've talked a little bit about addressing the macro anxiety economy. Can you talk a little bit more about what you meant by that? Because I thought that was a really interesting point.
Yeah, I think like stress and anxiety have obviously been around for eternity, but it's only the past kind of couple years that it's, I think, something that it's kind of coming to, it's become more extreme, and people have acknowledged it, feel vulnerable about it, or like openly talk about it. And so I think there's like kind of two categories of the anxiety economy emerging, as I like to say. Like there's consumables, so things like CBD, marijuana, Xanax, opioids you could even call, as a, it's a extreme end of it, but like why do people use, various drugs?
Well, I mean, does that concern you that you've kind of lumped those all together and are operating in that space?
No, I think there's just like, there's clearly we're clearly in a transformational time in history due to like, technological change. Like our phone, like just always being connected has kind of made us somewhat crazy. And so I think it's natural that we're trying to figure out how to feel more kind of centered and in control, right? And so that's, I think, the rise of various forms of consumables, some, way worse, some, harmless and beneficial, like CBD, but as well as lifestyle choices. So mindfulness, Marie Kondo, time well spent, yoga, meditation, like why are these things all kind of booming over the past couple of years? Well, it's because people feel more stressed and anxious, right? And so I look at Recess has the ability to be kind of the largest brand in this space.
And if you weren't the founder and CEO of Recess, what do you think you'd be doing?
It's a very good question. I haven't thought a lot about, trust me, I spent about 3 years thinking about that until I stumbled upon the idea of Recess. And so I haven't spent that much time thinking about it, but something in, the similar kind of consumer brand, consumer experience space. But no, Recess kind of connected a lot of things I've always been passionate about. I've always loved politics and strategy and design, and I've always loved to cook. But and so like it really connected a lot of my passions into one ideas, and I didn't realize that when I started working on it, but the dots connect backwards. So.
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and open the floor up for questions. So if we have our first person who wants to go ahead and come up and ask a question, please step down to the microphone.
Hi. I think I noticed your pop-up on Broadway right nearby, actually. Can you talk about what you gained from the pop-up, like how it worked for you?
Yeah. So the funny story about the pop-up is the original inspiration to do the pop-up was that the company was based in my apartment, and we needed an office, and I hate co-working spaces. And so I was like, there's all this empty ground floor retail space. Why don't we move into a ground floor retail space and put the office in the back and do some type of like art activation up front? There was literally no plan. And we found this great space, and I hired my friend Fritz, who's like my brother's friend from college, who's like 24 years old, who like knows how to build things. And I was like, do you want to make this space with me? And all the while, kind of everything just kept moving faster. So we're like, all right, we're not going to fit in the office, or we're not going to fit in the back. So we decided to take the whole space. And the main idea is like we wanted to kind of create a space that felt like you were walking into the feeling we want you to feel when you drink a recess, or felt like you're walking into our Instagram. So I'd say like the worlds are very much kind of aligned. And so it serves a couple purposes. Again, there's that experience of it. It's a place for people to sample and buy the product, but that's by far the least important. And the most important is that it's kind of served as a kind of a community gathering place for the creative community in New York City. And so we hosted, I don't know, an average of like 3 events a week for 8 months with various kind of brand and creative partners at Recess IRL. And it just kind of worked better than we've expected. And so we ended up, instead of keeping it open for 2 months, we kept it open for 8 months. And I think it's very much kind of inspired what our entire kind of marketing strategy is about, which is kind of creating these experiences with partners of various kinds that people want to engage with and step away from their phone for a minute and kind of share with their friends.
Do you have plans to open another Recess IRL? And if so, do you have a location in mind?
Not a location yet. We will definitely be opening other Recess IRLs in various cities around the country and hopefully the world. And I think there's lots of different versions of Recess IRL that we can create.
Great. All right, if we want to get our next question.
How you doing? Victor Hugo Gutierrez. Yahoo Finance always brings the best over here. In New York, basically we relax with Bob Marley and inspirational cigarettes to loosen the mood. So in your 2 years, in experimenting from your previous interviews, you were experimenting how to figure out. So I'm just curious as we throw these recess launch parties, and how does inspirational cigarettes and the use of the beverage itself, what impact would it have on the body? I know through your research, you have firsthand knowledge probably about that, right?
Are you talking about like inspirational cigarettes, like marijuana?
Oh, of course, man.
Yeah,
I can't say that live there because
I think they work. I think they work. They complement each other nicely for the right people.
Interesting euphemism.
Thank you.
I was at Burning Man, and someone served me 2 brownie with the marijuana, all right? And I realize I got drugged, and everything I see is under the water. So I have to call the emergency room at the Burning Man. It's the best emergency room ever. It's so fun, everybody naked in the emergency room.
I've been to Burning Man a couple times. I know what it's like.
And I'm sorry, I do want to be mindful of everyone's time.
My question is,
yeah.
my question is, look like if marijuana become legalized, that kind of accident will happen a lot. So what's your take on that? Thank you.
I mean, we're not a marijuana company, so I don't think it's appropriate kind of for me to comment on that. But I've heard of people having bad incidents on edibles, and so I'd recommend avoiding those.
Right. I think we should clarify. CBD, of course, having less or equal to 0.3% THC, so non-psychoactive.
Yeah.
That's not the compound that's
So what you had is nothing. That's not in recess. It's yeah.
All right, next question.
So thanks for the presentation. This is pretty interesting, and I was going to comment, but maybe a question first, and that's, so this is not psychoactive. So how, in terms of the pitching, calm in a can, I won't charge you for that one, by the way. That one's free. But in terms of calmness, how do you message to that if it's not psychoactive? It's just for me to learn more.
Yeah, so what CBD is doing is it's interacting with a nervous system called your endocannabinoid system, which helps your body kind of maintain equilibrium. And so instead of feeling kind of up, down, and kind of agitated all day, you feel kind of more balanced. So how do I communicate? How do we communicate that? I think it's through the brand, it's through the name, it's through our messaging, it's through everything we do. And so I don't think something needs to be psychoactive in order to kind of make a difference in people's lives.
But meaning it doesn't work in the central nervous system at all to produce a feeling of calmness?
No, it does. Psychoactiveness means it's going to like augment your brain's ability to, like when you're stoned, like when you smoke a joint,
Sure.
like that's what, THC is what's psychoactive. So CBD is not.
All right, thanks.
And also your CBD is hemp derived, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of different, I guess, distinctions. And there's, marijuana derived, and then you have hemp derived. And so you've gone with that
Correct.
specifically.
Yeah.
So quick, you're right on with the brand, and that's the big thing. How much time and energy do you actually spend on the formula and kind of improving that and really making sure that you maintain your kind of competitive edge in the can?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it took me 6 months to kind of create this formula, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I worked with fortunately, I worked with someone who did. But I took the train up to Beacon, New York, every weekend for 6 months and made this. We're in the process of kind of creating some new flavors and making some small adjustments to this because I think there's always kind of room for improvement. So we're spending a lot of time on it, and we're making a lot of investments kind of in our supply chain to ensure we have a product that's super high quality and compliant, and so it's very important for us.
Yeah, so I'm getting the idea from what you've said that you don't need the store doesn't need a license to sell your CBD products, and your manufacturing facility doesn't need a license in order to make the product there. Is that correct?
That's right. For now, like like we'll see what that's our whole point. We want the regulation to tell us what to do.
What about interstate commerce? I mean, can you actually transport recess specifically between states? Is that all good
Yep.
and dandy because of the
Hemp
farm
farming,
bill?
Yep.
Great.
So that's, again, marijuana, hemp, different things.
Exactly. Great. Let's see. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Yeah, go ahead and step right up to the microphone.
Hi, so I've noticed there's a lot of controversy around pesticide-free lately when it comes to THC and CBD. Do you have any questions that your consumers are asking about when you're sourcing your CBD? Is it pesticide-free? Is this a conversation you've had recently?
Yeah, I think quite confident ours is kind of non-GMO, but that's definitely a huge thing we're talking about on the hemp roundtable as the regulations around kind of farming and cultivation are continued to be kind of clarified. And so it's something definitely we would prioritize.
Cool. Hey, so I just had a question on the branding. So we've seen like a lot of direct-to-consumer companies come out with this lifestyle branding, and there seems to be hundreds of them kind of all copying the same sort of aesthetics. Do you see us kind of getting into a bubble with this type of aesthetic today as we see more and more of these companies come out that kind of are playing to that lifestyle initiative?
Yeah, so I think I totally do, and I see brands copying Recess all the time. I think the difference, there's the aesthetic and then there's your messaging. I think the key to Recess is actually not the visual, but more about our narrative and our copy and like our message and our mission. I think that's what comes across, and I think that's much harder to create authentically. And so I definitely think we're in like this Instagram D2C brand bubble, and we haven't spent any money on advertising very deliberately, and I think the days of being able to build a brand by just kind of creating like a nice aesthetic and launching some Instagram ads to support it are kind of over. You have to kind of be kind of narrative driven, content and experience driven.
When you think about the investments that you're making right now into Recess, is it more focused on the product side and supply chain and development, or is it more on customer acquisition costs, maybe not traditional advertising, but developing that Instagram page, Recess IRL, and that brick and mortar location to bring people onto the brand. Where does most of that investment spend lie?
Yeah, so we're investing a lot in kind of innovation, product, and supply chain. On the marketing side, we're really actually not doing that much yet. Like, we're doing a lot, but I don't think nearly as much as we're going to be doing a year from now. So on the marketing side, I really still think we're in this kind of like infrastructure laying stage of the business. We're in the process of kind of creating a brand new website, which is going to have an entire focus on kind of editorial and content and the ability to kind of sell merchandise and through these partnerships. And I think these are the types of bet where we're going to be kind of learning like how to create content at scale, how to create merchandise, before we. Again, as I said, the game hasn't really started yet. And so we're still kind of moving slow, kind of keeping our powder dry until, I'd say hopefully next summer. There's when we'll really accelerate things.
What's the vision for content, would you say? I mean, is there any kind of like a BuzzFeed type thing, or is it like a Refinery 29, or what kind of editorial vision do you have on that side?
I think there's a lot of, our brand is pretty weird, so it allows us to like go in a lot of different directions. So anything from poetry and fiction and city guides to creator profiles, like you name it, we can do it. And we're doing a lot of thinking right now. Obviously, like you look at our Instagram, I think we've kind of demonstrated that we're pretty capable of kind of coming up with interesting ideas, kind of turn the cans into personalities, for example. And so I think there's a lot of directions we can go. I think actually user-generated content's a very interesting opportunity for us because our brand's so focused on kind of designers and creatives, and they're truly obsessed with the brand. And so we're going to be doing a lot to enable them to create their own type of, recess content that we'll then kind of promote and syndicate out. And so, again, I think that's like a long-term bet for us. But I think I think we're very well positioned to succeed at it.
Well, and monetizing that, I mean,
Yeah.
I know the internet advertising business is booming. I mean, just look at social media, look at just any kind of content that now has ads. So is that something that you would consider as well, just for another revenue stream, monetizing the content that you'd be putting out?
Yeah, you can talk to my team. I really believe in this idea of marketing that makes money. But yeah, you're going to see us monetize a lot of different aspects of the kind of content and experiences, and obviously merchandise that we create, because what I believe is like ultimately beverage is like a brand marketing exercise, and Red Bull and Monster and Coca-Cola and Pepsi are just competing on marketing at the end of the day. And so while other brands might have to spend all of their money on television ads and out of home, if we can sell people t-shirts and iPhone cases and hats and sell tickets to events, well, that decreases your amount you have to spend on marketing because it's paying for some of it. And so I think there's a lot of different parts of our business over time that we can monetize, which again all kind of serve to drive sales of the beverage though.
Looking at the flavors of Recess, my last question for you, what is your favorite flavor?
Pomegranate hibiscus.
Why is that?
I mean, I think it does have this kind of rich, what we like to say, it's rich and full-bodied like a fine wine, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. Sometimes it feels kind of heavy, but I think it's my favorite. I like them all at different times of the day. So like during the day at work, I like peach ginger. It's a little more lighter. At night, I like blackberry chai before I go to bed, and pomegranate hibiscus is always my favorite.
All right, well, on that note, Ben Witte, CEO, founder of Recess, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.